Mr. Holden. Mr. Holden, AB 173. Good afternoon, sir.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Transportation Committee, I'm pleased to be here to present AB 173, which removes the sunset date on the law that allows the City of Laverne to permit the use of golf carts by authorized entities on public roadways between facilities exclusively for maintenance and security. The City of Laverne is a small municipality in my district, home to the University of Laverne and Hillcrest Retirement Community. Existing law has authorized the University of Laverne and Hillcrest Retirement Community to utilize golf cart-style electric vehicles to transport people and materials on pathways within their respective campuses and streets, strictly adjacent to their respective campuses. These golf cart-style electric vehicles are equipped with seat belts, brake lights, and additional safety features as required by law. Since this law was enacted, there have been no reported traffic accidents or collisions that have occurred, and both the University and Hillcrest Retirement Community have increased the efficiency of their maintenance and security services. AB 173 would remove the sunset date on the law, which would otherwise expire on January 1st, 2016. To ensure that these vehicles remain a vital tool for university and retirement facilities in the City of Laverne. I thank you for your consideration, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Looks like you have some support there, Mr. Holden. Would you invite them to testify?
What's more important is that I have support up there. That's okay.
I'll go first. I'm Matthew Neely. I'm the president and CEO of Hillcrest, which is a retirement community in Laverne, California. We serve about 400 older adults, many grandparents, and have about 200 staff. It's a 50-acre campus, but a smaller portion of that is developed. So we literally bring the services to the residents' homes, including an emergency nurse, on small walkways. And we have a divided campus that requires that some of these electric vehicles cross a public thoroughfare. 25 miles per hour or is the set speed limit there. And so we use electric carts to bring these services to our residents. We haven't had any issues. We've used them for multiple decades, and we're grateful for your consideration and ask that the sunset be removed. Thank you.
I'm Phil Hockey. I'm representing the University of Laverne, and the university's been there for 125 years. It's a small campus, but it's integrated into the community. So the only way to provide maintenance and security services with these electric carts is to cross city streets. We cross, in our campus, 6 places, and we require the extension of this law to allow us to continue.
Peter Kellison on behalf of Leading Age California, which represents the not-for-profit continuing care retirement communities, assisted living and affordable senior housing providers in California. They're in support of the bill, would like to see this community continue to access the ease of convenience it's been experiencing.
Any of the members of the public that would like to testify in support of this measure? Any members of the public that would like to testify in opposition to this measure? Seeing none, any committee members have any questions of the author? Mr. Medina.
Wondering, Mr. Holden, if you fit into these golf carts.
Something told me you were going to have that kind of a question. I can lay out in the back on the flatbed.
But actually, I did have one question. So the only places where these golf carts go on the on public roads are the places indicated on the map. Those 5 places, those 5 roads.
It looks like 5. There's one. It looks like 5. There's 6 crossings. One is a kind of a intersection, but that's the only place. And there are a few hundred yards where we need to drive along a narrow city street to get to parts of the campus.
But other than that, they're not on the public roads?
No,
Other than
no,
those
and all this
locations?
has to be approved by the city of Laverne, by the police chief, approved by city council, before we can use the carts.
Thank you.
Ms. Melendez?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Holden, so I have some cities in my district, not a university that has this type of situation, but some cities in my district who, these cities use these types of vehicles as well, and they can peacefully coexist on some public roadways, and they all know how to get along, and there have not been any issues, and I'm not certain why that there's a sunset date on here anyway, but I'm sure they greatly appreciate you coming in to eliminate that. So I'm happy to support this. I didn't see anybody opposing it, so I hope it stays that way. I don't know why anybody would oppose it, unless
think
of course you couldn't fit in the golf cart, and then I could certainly understand.
Then I would oppose it, right?
Any other members of the committee that would like to ask a question of the author? Seeing none, Mr. Holden, would you like to close?
Just respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Holden, thank you for bringing this bill to our committee, and I understand and appreciate the need for local control on these issues. Golf carts do not have safety features of the cars, but they can be dangerous to operate alongside vehicles on roadways. However, the City of Laverne conducted a pilot, and there were no reported accidents. Therefore, it makes sense to allow the golf cart use indefinitely, but only in these limited circumstances. And with that, sir, I'll be supporting your bill today. Madam Secretary, will you call the roll on the vote?
The motion is a do pass. Frazier?
Aye.
Frazier, aye. Ashajian? Ashajian, aye. Baker? Aye. Baker, aye. Bloom? Aye. Bloom, aye. Campos? Campos, aye. Chu? Aye. Chu, aye. Daly? Aye. Daly, aye. Dodd? Aye. Dodd, aye. Eduardo Garcia?
Aye.
Eduardo Garcia, aye. Gomez? Aye. Gomez, aye. Kim?
Aye.
Kim, aye. Linder? Aye. Linder, aye. Medina? Aye. Medina, aye. Melendez? Melendez, aye. Nazarian? Aye. Nazarian, aye. O'Donnell? Aye. O'Donnell, aye.
That bill's out. Mr. Holden, congratulations. We'll hold the roll open in case any members are missing on the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir.
Committee.
Mr. McCarty. What number? He's not here. File item 10. Oh, there it is. Good afternoon, Mr. McCarty. AB 422.
Yes, sir.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I'm pleased to present AB 422, which will give the Sacramento Regional Transit Authority short-term borrowing authority. Okay.
Continue.
I have a few witnesses from our local transit district. Maybe we'll just say a few things.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Wiley. I'm the Regional Transit's General Manager and Chief Executive Officer. And, I'm very pleased that you're taking this bill under consideration to help us with our annual cash flow issues. This bill would really provide some relief for us as we look at continuing the funding of our service throughout the year. And then I also have one of our chief financial folks here with me, Brent Berniger, to help answer questions as well.
No.
Somebody proceed.
Good afternoon. My name is Brent Berniger. I'm the Director of Finance and Treasury at Regional Transit. So Assembly Bill 422 allows RT to enter into a 5-year borrowing arrangement for cash flow purposes. And although the arrangement allows for a 5-year period, it's important to understand that the actual amount that is borrowed is limited to the operating federal funds that we receive. So this is typically about $29 million, and this is what we tend to borrow in that line of credit. So it's important to understand the borrowing process. The federal government provides reimbursement on a grant basis after the money has been spent. So on July 1st, we begin spending our preventative maintenance dollars, and we actually don't receive that money till August and September of the following fiscal year. So what we need is we need a line of credit for that time period so that we can actually pay these suppliers, vendors, and payroll.
Good afternoon. Kiara Ross on behalf of the City of Sacramento in support of the bill. We think these are important projects. We'd like to see this process go forward.
Thank you very much. Any other members of the public that would like to speak on behalf of this bill and in support? Any members of the public like to speak in opposition of this bill? Seeing any questions of committee staff? Mr. Sajian?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. McCarthy, maybe your witnesses can answer this question as well as you. Since we're the body to authorize for this to move forward, if for some reason something you weren't able to pay, are we held responsible?
I don't believe so.
Can they
With
come
the,
after us
district
for any
answer?
reason?
No, the district is responsible for fulfilling our obligations, not the legislature.
Thank you.
Mr. Linder?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to support this bill, and but I do have a couple questions, just because I do think that this is a very reasonable way of solving the problem with getting the grant funds allocated in time. You had mentioned that you'll only be borrowing only 1 year's worth of anticipated grant for operating. Is there any protection that, or can you at any given time borrow more than 1 year's worth of budget?
Something I think you should consider is the borrowing that we do is limited to what the financial institutions will allow. And so typically when we go out and seek borrowing, we'll present our cash flow, we'll present our financial position, we'll describe that the borrowing that we need is for federal purposes. So to borrow anything above and beyond the federal purposes, typically financial institutions wouldn't want to do that, as they would be more at risk. So there is a tendency for us to only be borrowing exactly what we need for that federal.
So then it's only going to the 5 years is just so that you have some time and a good interest rate. You're not planning on borrowing 5 years worth of what your expected grant would be.
Correct. In fact, the current statute only allows us to do 1 year at a time, so every time we go to borrow, we incur legal costs, we incur costs for doing this. So now getting into a 5-year arrangement, it will allow us flexibility, it will allow us to work with the bank and actually reduce the interest costs and have more flexibility with that bank, because what they're able to do is able to partner up with us as opposed to 1 year at a time. There would be a fear that they would shift from one institution to another.
Okay. And then one other question is there a, in this piece of legislation, is there a cap on the interest rate? And if not, can one be added?
I don't know. We can certainly look at that as we go along. Do you have any?
As far as we know, at this point, there's no cap on the interest rate. But because of this bill, we believe that we'll actually get more favorable rates because of establishing that financial relationship with the lending institutions. And also the fact that the lending institution would know that they are doing business with us for a longer period of time. So that actually should reduce the interest rate that we're paying as opposed to increasing it.
Thank you.
Member Baker.
Thank you. I just want to follow up on your answer to your Mr. Linder's question, and that is, I think the answer is no. That there's nothing in the bill that caps the amount that you can have. You're saying that a financial institution would be the stopgap. They are the ones who can decide the amount, but the bill itself doesn't cap the amount of line of credit that you can get, even to the grant that you're anticipating. Is that correct?
The one cap that is in the bill is referred to as the 85% means test, where it looks at all your grants. That's the only cap, but as far as the amount that's borrowed per year, there is no cap.
Okay, and does that 85% cap just apply to your grants, or does it apply to more than your grants?
It's actually statutory language that's in the current existing government code as well, where it allows any lender to not borrow more than 85% of your needs, and that way you have to set aside 85% so that 15% of your costs, your administrative costs, can be covered. It basically doesn't want you to borrow the cost of paying interest, if that makes sense.
It's my understanding the language is actually 85% of the grants or other funds. And other funds, excuse me. So I'm just trying to get to the nub of Mr. Linder's question, is that there really isn't a cap.
Correct.
Okay. The next is, and this is This is for grants that haven't been awarded yet.
Correct.
Okay.
These are federal grants.
And
So-
what is different about RT that this is necessary for you as opposed to every other transit entity in the state? I understand that
Yeah.
there may be something special going on here.
Sure. Well, the big picture is RT is a unique district, not like the larger jurisdictions that have greater capital reserves and so forth, or local jurisdictions that run their transit district. And so we're kind of an outlier there. Maybe you want to expand on that?
Well, absolutely. We're created by state legislation. We're a special district. And because of the size of RT, we don't have the resources available to us because we have a fairly minimal capital program that varies over the from year to year. We're talking about managing our operating cash flow. Likewise, as smaller systems that are departments of city or county governments, we don't have those institutions to fall back on to help us manage our cash flow as well.
Well, I applaud my colleague for being very attentive to the needs of those in his community. I think if the bill itself had some more controls on what the line of credit could be and what funds it would apply to, it would be, once, a little bit easier for me to support. Perhaps those are changes that may come in the process. But I thank you, and I'm not expecting to support the bill at this time, but I'll be very interested in hearing any other elaboration you have on the controls for what you can obligate yourself to. Thank you.
Any other questions from committee members of the author? Seeing none, would you like to close, Mr. Carty?
Thank you. Thank you for the consideration. We think this is a unique solution for a unique transit district in California, and ask for your aye vote.
Mr. McCarty, thank you, and I agree. I am happy to support your bill. And this provides flexibility and local control while still ensuring that the taxpayer dollars are used responsibly and wisely. With that, Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll on the vote?
The motion is a due pass to local government. Frazier?
Aye.
Frazier, aye. Ashajian?
Aye.
Ashajian, aye. Baker? No. Baker, no. Bloom? Aye. Bloom, aye. Campos? Aye. Campos, aye. Chu? Aye. Chu, aye. Daly? Aye. Daly, aye. Dodd?
Aye.
Dodd, aye. Eduardo Garcia?
Aye.
Eduardo Garcia, aye. Gomez? Aye. Gomez, aye. Kim?
No.
Kim, no. Linder?
Aye.
Linder, aye. Medina?
Aye.
Medina, aye. Melendez? Melendez, no. Nazarian? Aye. Nazarian, aye. O'Donnell? Aye. O'Donnell, aye.
The bill's out. Mr. McCarty, we'll keep the roll open for those who might be absent during the vote.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Assemblymember Irwin, please. So we'll move on to item number 13, ACR 14. Good afternoon, Assemblymember.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much. Every day, police officers and deputies risk their lives during their efforts to keep our communities safe. ACR 14 will designate a 2-mile portion of Highway 101 in Ventura County as Deputy Sheriff Eugene Kostyuchenko Memorial Highway. Born in the Ukraine, Eugene had a superb intellect and was fluent in 4 languages. He served as an intelligence officer in the Ukrainian military before becoming an American citizen, and in 2007, a Ventura County deputy sheriff. Tragically, his career was cut short. On October 28, 2014, after completing an early morning traffic stop, Deputy Kostyuchenko was killed when he was struck by a drunk driver as he was walking back to his patrol car. Deputy Kostyuchenko was known by many as a kind, compassionate, and caring individual who deeply loved his wife Maura, his 2 sons, and all his animals. He is truly worthy of this dedication. And I'd also just like to add that the signage for this dedication will only be erected after receiving funding from non-state sources to cover costs. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Move the bill.
Any members of support in the public? Seeing none. Any members of the public that would like to speak in opposition? Seeing none. Members of the committee have any questions? Would you like to close?
I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
I want to make it very clear to the committee that there was no opposition to make this come off consent. The author asked to remove it so she could present it, and I'm proud that she did. I want to say that, very supportive of any time we can support ACRs for our locals going forward. So with that, Madam Secretary, we have a first and a second. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll on the vote?
The motion is a due pass to appropriations. Frazier? Frazier, aye. Ashajian?
Aye.
Ashajian, aye. Baker?
Aye.
Baker, aye. Bloom? Bloom, aye. Campos? Campos, aye. Chu? Chu, aye. Daly? Dodd? Dodd, aye. Eduardo Garcia? Eduardo Garcia, aye. Gomez? Gomez, aye. Kim?
Aye.
Kim, aye. Linder? Linder, aye. Medina? Medina, aye. Melendez? Melendez, aye. Nazarian? Nazarian, aye. O'Donnell? O'Donnell, aye.
Thank you very much.
That bill is out, and we'll leave the roll open for any members that have missed it. Congratulations. Thank you. Mr. Leo, AB 400.